On paper, Norway looks like a cheat code. Sky-high wages, free-flowing oil and gas. It sits at the top of almost every quality of life ranking on the planet. But money is not the problem here. There is plenty of it. The problem is that the famous Norwegian model is suddenly hitting walls nobody saw coming. So what actually went wrong? When you picture rich nations, you probably think America, Switzerland, or the Gulf states. But in raw wealth per person, tiny Norway quietly beats almost all of them. This is a country of just 5.5 million people, yet every year it produces goods and services worth over $500 billion. GDP per person tops $90,000. On the Human Development Index, Norway has spent years near the very top, sometimes ranked #1 in the world. It is also one of the biggest natural gas exporters alive, and after war broke out in Ukraine, Norway became Europe's single most important gas supplier overnight. Look at those numbers, and the story seems obvious. Norway won the economic lottery. Massive oil, massive gas, a front row seat to Europe's richest energy fields. But here is what most people miss. Finding oil is the easy part. The hard part is not destroying yourself with the money. To understand that, we have to rewind. Back in the 1960s, Norway was not rich. It was an average country living off fishing, shipping, and trade on the cold edge of Europe. Then came 1969. An American company, Phillips Petroleum, struck something enormous under the North Sea, a field called Ekofisk. It was one of the largest oil discoveries of its era. And here is the kicker. Ekofisk was only the beginning. Year after year, more giant oil and gas fields appeared. Each one pumped billions of dollars into the country. Remember that wave of money, because how Norway spent it changes everything. In barely a decade, a quiet country on Europe's edge transformed into one of the most powerful energy players on the entire continent. And this is exactly where Norway's story could have gone horribly wrong, because history is full of countries that sat on treasure and stayed poor. Just look at Venezuela. It holds some of the largest oil reserves on Earth, yet despite that wealth, it collapsed into deep economic crisis. Norwegians understood the danger fast. Oil could be a blessing or a curse. So from day one, they did something radical. They kept control of everything. The oil fields stayed property of the state. Drilling companies paid heavy taxes and fees. And Norway built its own oil giant, Statoil, known today as Equinor. Because of this, a huge slice of the money stayed inside the country. But the single most important decision had not even happened yet. In the 1990s, Norway created a fund. Oil income would flow into it. Instead of spending everything right away, they invested the money all over the world. The goal was simple but genius. Turn wealth hidden under the seabed into wealth that keeps paying out long after the oil runs dry. And the plan worked. Today, that Norwegian fund is worth over $2 trillion. $2 trillion for 5.5 million people. The fund owns slices of thousands of companies. It holds roughly 1.5% of every listed share on the planet. This is how Norway dodged the curse that ruined others. But do not get comfortable, because none of this means Norway broke free from oil. Far from it, and that is where the trouble begins. Look at Norway's growth over the decades. The booms line up almost perfectly with high oil prices, and when oil prices crashed, the economy felt it almost instantly. The giant fund softened those swings, but it never changed one stubborn fact. For most of the last 50 years, Norwegian wealth meant oil and gas, full stop. And here comes a new paradox. Norway solved the problems that destroyed other oil nations, but in doing so, it created brand new ones. Depending on oil is not automatically bad. The danger appears when one sector is so successful that everything else stops growing, and Norway is living that exact danger. As recently as 2023, oil and gas made up over 60% of all Norwegian exports. Fish, the old backbone, was about 9%. That gap is staggering. Some economists call this the curse of success. When money pours in this easily, the pressure to build new industries quietly disappears. Maybe that is why Norway never built the global tech giants its neighbors did, and the comparison is brutal. Sweden gave the world Spotify and IKEA. Denmark built Novo Nordisk. Norway, despite being richer, struggles to name a single global company outside of energy. Wealth solves a lot of problems, but sometimes it quietly kills the hunger to build something new. And believe me, this is not Norway's only crack. Take Norwegian healthcare. This will shock you. Norway spends over 10% of its GDP on health, some of the highest spending on Earth. And yet, in 2024, the average wait to begin specialist treatment was nearly 77 days. Even here, even with $2 trillion, patients wait weeks and weeks. The deeper problem is people. In 2025, the biggest worker shortage in the whole country was in health and social care. Over 11,000 missing staff. Thousands of nurses, carers, and specialist doctors simply not there, and around 180,000 Norwegians had no assigned family doctor at all. This shatters the dream that money fixes everything. You can have the biggest fund on earth, but you cannot print doctors overnight, especially while your population is rapidly aging. As needs rise, so do costs, and that forces a brutal question: who pays for all of this? The answer is the most controversial part of the whole model. Norway long sold itself as the perfect welfare state. High taxes, strong public services, deep social protection, high living standards for almost everyone. For a long time it worked beautifully, then people started asking how high the price could really go, and one tax lit the fuse. Norway's wealth tax is not charged on income, it is charged on simply owning assets. So an entrepreneur whose company makes little profit can still owe tax on its value. The result? Some of the richest Norwegians started moving their fortunes, and themselves, abroad. The favorite destination was Switzerland. According to figures cited by the Financial Times in 2025, more than 500 wealthy Norwegians may have already relocated to Switzerland. The average Norwegian is not packing for Zurich, but when founders and investors leave, their capital, experience, and future investments often vanish with them. So a painful question grows louder. Was this system, built to share wealth, now quietly making it harder to create wealth in the first place? To escape oil, Norway needs risk takers, but in a world where capital can flee to another country in days, those people are getting harder to keep. And that leads to the strangest contradiction of all. Norway is drowning in national wealth, yet for ordinary people, daily life is not getting easier. Look at housing. You would think buying a home in one of the richest nations on earth would be simple. Norwegians earn far more than most Europeans. The reality is brutal. In 2025, home prices rose another 5%. The average home cost over 4.4 million Norwegian kroner. In Oslo, getting onto the ladder became nearly impossible for the young. For more and more people, owning a home is no longer a normal step into adulthood. It means a giant loan and decades of debt, and the cause is twisted. The problem is not a lack of money, it is where the money goes. For years, the system pushed people to pour savings into property, and prices spiraled even faster. It is the same trap seen across the rich West. Older generations ride rising home values. The young must borrow for decades just to get in the door. The damage is already visible. Norwegian households are among the most indebted in the entire OECD, with debt over 250% of disposable income. So even here, in one of the wealthiest countries on earth, young people ask the same haunting question heard everywhere: will the first ever afford my own home? And above it all hangs one final question: what happens to Norway if oil itself stops mattering? In 2024, Norway supplied gas equal to over 30% of all EU and UK consumption. As the world turns to nuclear and renewables, the real challenge is not the next barrel. It is finding a brand new engine of growth, because even the biggest fund on earth cannot solve that. Only Norwegians can.